What's up everyone and welcome back to the channel. Now let's get into it. Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier doesn't look like it's gonna happen. A few weeks ago, we got indication from Dustin Poirier that talks for a fight against Nate Diaz had stalled on account of the Stockton, California native looking ahead at retirement. Even Dana White stated that this could be the case. Case in point, listen to this brief exchange between reporters and White about the potential for a Nate Diaz-Dustin Poirier fight following UFC 273.
Do you still like the idea of a fight between those two, or would you maybe move on to something else with Dustin maybe?
Yeah.
Someone else?
Yeah.
Any ideas?
No.
Okay, thank you, Dan.
All right.
This fight had been talked about since Poirier lost his lightweight title fight against Charles Oliveira last December at UFC 269. Nate Diaz had been chiming in, poking fun at Poirier after the fight online, and it culminated into a potential clash between the two, given that Diaz is on the last fight of his current UFC contract. He's also reportedly looking at retiring after this last fight. It's unclear why the fight fell through and what happens between Diaz and the UFC after this, but there's always the possibility of a Conor McGregor-Nate Diaz trilogy fight, as both fighters do have one win over the other and both remain massive fan favorites. But what do you think about Dana White saying he's moving on from the Diaz-Poirier fight? Dana White thinks the judges blew the Sterling-Yan decision. Aljamain Sterling walked away with the undisputed UFC bantamweight title following his split decision victory over Petr Yan on Saturday night. The fight was incredibly close, and while Sterling dominated certain rounds with his grappling, Yan was able to turn the tide in certain points, which led to a lot of fans wondering who the judges would give the fight to. Again, the fight was very close, but ultimately, the judges thought Sterling did enough to be crowned the undisputed champion. But one person who completely disagreed with the judging is UFC president Dana White. During his post-fight press conference with reporters, White was asked how he scored the fight, and this is what he stated.
I thought that the judges blew that one. I thought I had it 3-2 the other way. I don't know how you guys scored it, but I guess it's all in however you score that first round.
Opinions online are mixed, with many people agreeing that Sterling won that fight, while many others believe that Yan should have had his hand raised. During the post-fight interview inside the cage, Petr Yan called for a rematch against Sterling, which would be a trilogy fight. Sterling is now up 2-0 against Yan, including the win via DQ in March of last year during their first encounter, when Yan delivered an illegal knee strike onto Sterling. Meanwhile, Sterling called out TJ Dillashaw for his first title defense, something that may actually take place, but more on that later. Do you agree with Dana White that the judges blew this decision, or do you feel that Sterling did indeed win a split decision victory over Yan? Give us your thoughts in the comment section. After his loss to Khamzat Chimaev, Gilbert Burns issues a statement. The loss was devastating, but the goal remains the same. Gilbert Burns says he's simply going to continue chugging along and look for more opportunities to get to the welterweight title, in a recent statement he issued following his loss to Khamzat Chimaev. The welterweight clash was perhaps the most highly anticipated fight for UFC 273, and it did not disappoint. For 15 minutes, we were witness to a beautiful display of violence from both Burns and Khamzat. This fight saw everything, as both Burns and Khamzat left it all on the line in what was easily the fight of the night for UFC 273. Ultimately, the judges sided with Khamzat for the unanimous decision, though this looked like a closer fight than the judging would indicate. Ultimately, the hype was real, and Burns succumbed to Khamzat's aggression and striking prowess. Still, both fighters showcased a ton of heart and skill. Following the loss, Burns issued this statement, which he posted on his Instagram profile. Had a lot of fun yesterday. Unfortunately, was not enough to get the win. Shout out to my family, team, sponsors, and fans for the support. Love you guys. Another lesson learned. I won't rest until I have the belt. Thank God for another opportunity to do what I love. Shout out to everyone from the UFC team, the security, the guys with the blue, doctors, and Dana White. It's a pleasure to fight for this company. While Khamzat was the taller fighter in this affair, Burns has much more experience. According to statistics released by the UFC, Burns actually outstruck Chimaev with significant strikes in the very close third round, landing 119 to Khamzat's 108. Still, the former title challenger is now 5-2 in the welterweight division, as Burns now has lost 2 of his last 3 fights, including a welterweight title fight against Kamaru Usman back in February of last year. What are your thoughts on Burns' performance at UFC 273, and where do you think he goes from here? Don't forget to take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all the latest fight news. Statement from the Korean Zombie after his UFC 273 loss. Chan Sung-young has been fighting professionally since 2007 and in the UFC since 2011. He's seen it all in the octagon, and on Saturday night at UFC 273, he hinted that he is considering retirement following this last loss. For just over 3 full rounds, featherweight champion Alexander Volkanovski displayed beautiful martial arts, demolishing the Korean Zombie in the stand-up, hitting him seemingly at will, and showing off his incredibly fast defense. Volkanovski showed massive improvements and made Young look slow in comparison. While the Zombie displayed his famous toughness, he simply couldn't get much of an attack going against the champion, who showed that there are levels to this fight game. The fight was waved off by referee Herb Dean just after the first combination thrown by Volkanovski early in the 4th round. During the post-fight interview, Young stated he would consider whether to hang up the gloves, but he remained respectful and lauded Volkanovski for being a true champion. Now, not long after the fight, the Zombie is issuing a statement to Instagram. This is what he stated: "It's sad or regretful, or something like that, but there's no such thing. I feel relieved. My physical condition was perfect, and all the camps were perfect, but I lost so perfectly, haha. I'm sorry to those who looked forward to me. Thank you to those who worried about me. I'm okay. I'm just disappointed to learn that a champion is like this. I hope that Korean martial arts will be helpful to the next generation. And I want to say thank you to Volkanovski for showing the dignity of a champion. Thank you, Alex." What are your thoughts on the featherweight title fight? And where do you think the Zombie goes from here? Dana White agrees that TJ Dillashaw could be next for Aljamain Sterling. Following his decision win over Petr Yan over the weekend, undisputed bantamweight champion Aljamain Sterling called for a fight against former champion TJ Dillashaw immediately afterwards. And now the big boss is saying he's up for that fight. Sterling and Yan fought a close bout over the weekend and had many people guessing as to who won that fight. The judges ultimately gave the title to Sterling via split decision, while UFC President Dana White stated that he actually had Yan winning after those tough 25 minutes. Ultimately, Sterling was the one who came out on top in the UFC 273 co-main event on Saturday night. It was sweet redemption for the Funkmaster, who drew the ire of fans online over the way he handled the aftermath of last year's UFC 259 bantamweight title fight against Yan, when the Russian was disqualified for an illegal knee strike and Sterling was handed the belt. Now, 13 months after that bout, the New York native won the rematch largely on the back of his grappling prowess. Now, with the way the first fight ended and the fact that this bout was incredibly close, there's the possibility that the UFC could set up a trilogy fight between Yan and Sterling. But White, during the post-fight press conference, stated that while that fight is there, it might be time to give the fans a fresh bout for the bantamweight title. Case in point, this is what he said when he was asked about who Sterling could defend his title against next.
You know, listen, that fight's going to be there. Petr Yan is one of the baddest dudes in that division, so you probably do the TJ fight.
Dillashaw was in attendance in Jacksonville at UFC 273 and had previously stated that he would want to fight for the belt next. But what do you think about that fight? Who is your early favorite between Sterling and Dillashaw? Today's video was packed with some juicy stories from the fight world. What are your thoughts about what's going on in MMA? Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel to see more videos just like this. See you next time.